Welcome back, everybody. I'm Bruce.
And I'm Jay. Welcome to our Magic the Gathering podcast.
Normally, we talk all about Commander here on the show. But we're, like we said before, we're taking a break. We're doing something a little bit different. We're collaborating with Jay from Mythic Mechanics to talk about something that we all enjoy a great deal and is near and dear to my heart. We're talking Cube. That's right, folks. We're doing a whole arc here on the show. We're talking Cube, and not just any Cube. We're talking about Mythic Mechanics Cube, designed by the one and only Jay, who's here with us tonight. Jay, how are you this fine evening?
I am doing well. I got a few games in at friends' houses and local LGSs this week. A few wins, a few losses, but good times had by all. How are you doing, Bruce?
I'm doing well. I was also able to get to play. I got to play in person on Friday night at a friend's house. We got to play some Commander. Unfortunately, it was a five-person pod, so it's a little bit clunky, but still pretty good. And I was able to make it out to a Secrets of Strixhaven pre-release on Saturday, and played I played Silver Quill, and was pleasantly surprised. Let's say, so I was feeling pretty good. But the new Silver Quill dragon, like Silver Quill, what's it called? Silver Quill. Anyway, the thing it's got makes your spells, all your spells have casualty 1. Holy
I'm sorry,
moly.
I'm not nothing's jumping to mind. I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, I'll find it here in a second. So, but it has casualty 1 on it. So I'll read it. I'll find the card here. Silver Quill. Not that one. It is Silver Quill the Disputant. 2 and a white and a black for a 4/4 legendary creature Elder Dragon with flying and vigilance. Each instant and sorcery spell you cast has casualty 1. This thing was a menace because it turned all their Inkling tokens into like copied versions of removal spells over and over and over again. And I got destroyed.
I did see when I walked around the my local pre-release at the portal in Bethlehem, I saw a lot of Silver Quill decks. A lot of people chose white and black as their starting point.
Yeah, and it was quite a strong one. At our pre-release event, many of the top decks at the top tables were all Silver Quill decks because you were really assertive and would get after your opponents and get them dead pretty quick. And you could get a lot of mileage out of a lot of questionable cards. The other piece that I was very pleased about, we'll probably get to it when we get to black cards, but maybe later in the show, is the prepared mechanic, particularly in the Silver Quill cards, was very, very effective. There was Grave Researcher, which is like 2 and a black for a 3/3. And when it's prepared, you have a reanimate effect on it. So that's real strong. And then there's another one, Silverwing. Oh, I forgot. I'm terrible with names right now, folks. What is it called? I will find it because it was a very good rare. It was a rare for 1 and a black, and it was, let's go have a look.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not more help. I just watched my friends play this weekend. I did open 1 pack. I bought a single pack, and I happened to pull an Emeritus of Ideation, so it was a good weekend for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I'm thinking of Scheming Silvertongue, 1 and a black for a 1/3 Vampire Warlock with flying and lifelink. At the beginning of your second main phase, if you gain two or more life this turn, this creature becomes prepared, and the spell on the other half is Sign in Blood. So it's a really great card advantage tool that you could leverage, and the Silver Quill had enough life gained that you didn't really mind paying 2 life for 2 more cards. So it proved to be, the 2 of them proved to be very effective cards. And they would still trigger your repartee, which is the Silver Quill ability that we have to target another creature, and then you could get a bonus. And so it was, all in all, that worked really well as a nice tight package and was really quite assertive. So anyway, it was a good time, a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing the set out in proper very, very soon. So, all right, are we ready to get down to work tonight?
Yeah, on to the task at hand.
Indeed. We're going to go through Mythic Mechanics Cube. We're breaking down color by color. Last week we did white. Tonight we are going to be doing blue. If you want to follow along, you can go check out mythicmechanics.com and go and see the actual list of all the cards that are in the cube and see what exactly is in blue. All right, so when we talk about things, we make reference to things that are on this list. You can go and see it. You can go represented by card like card art. You can see it done by curve breakdown. There's so many really great tools through Cube Cobra that you can really go and get a lot of additional information from the website that you can go and get. So, Jay, for our audience out there, describe Mythic Mechanics Cube. What is it all about?
Mythic Mechanics Singleton Cube. It's a do-it-yourself proxy vintage cube. It's got all the cards from the beginning of Magic. It's focused on rares and mythics, aiming to include one of each of Magic's 300 plus game mechanics. There's over 350. Not all of them apply in one-on-one, but each card is chosen because it's great on its own. So you don't have to be looking for particular strategies or synergies. And if any of you guys know the bread theory or the cab theory, it sort of sticks along those lines. And again, mythicmechanics.com, you can see all the information about the cube, and there's some resources there for you to download the cube yourself, print it out yourself, and get right up and running without spending much money at all.
Awesome. That is very well said. I like that. All right. So today we are looking at the blue cards. Now, before we get into going too far here, Jay, were there any themes or directions that you kind of had your heart set on? Like, I'm going to make this cube. This is what I want the blue cards to feel like. And I think that's kind of what I want to phrase it as. Like, because like last week, we fleshed out the idea that we're looking for a feeling or a vibe of like, this cube of playing like a story and a storytelling. So if that was the idea, like what directions were you looking to take the blue cards? What story were you looking to tell with blue here?
Initially, the whole cube was very creature focused. So my original build, as you can see in the Cube Cobra, is that I'm trying to have the same amount of creatures in each color and each casting cost across the board. But as I've been playing it, I sort of realized that blue players, they just want to do blue things, Bruce.
Whatever do you mean, my friend?
So I've been thinking about trying to add in some more instants and sorceries. So maybe cutting a couple creatures from blue. But when you talk about my original intent, it was to make it a creature-based cube and kind of into the old school Magic of, again, bread and cab, where it's focused on bombs, removal, evasion, and aggro, and cards that affect the board.
Right. Which is fine. I think blue is tricky because blue is the color that sort of bucks the trend of what both bread and cabs sort of lead us to want to do. And many people who are playing blue, particularly in a high-powered environment like a cube setting, are looking for an ability to interact and respond to what their opponents are doing. And so I think, having a very heavy focus on creatures in blue would be a big departure for many people who are looking to get into the cube, into playing cubes, because of the fact they're looking for counter spells, bounce spells, things that stun cards and lock them down, or other such mechanics that are going to allow a player to have a little more flexibility and a little more ability to respond at sort of inopportune moments and catch your opponents unawares. So there are probably some people who are going to be a little bit surprised from the outset, but not necessarily in an unpleasant way. Just it's a little more creature centric than we have grown accustomed to. But that doesn't mean that we can't make some, slight adjustments to sort of refine what we're doing. That's why the whole reason we're here in the first place. So one of the things that I sort of noticed, Jay, when I was looking at this list is that, and I noticed it again last week too, is that there is a little mini synergy package that's starting to shape together here that even in just 2 weeks with two cards. So last week there was Lymph Sliver, which is a sliver card in white, and now this week we have Gale Rider Sliver, which is a card. It's a single blue for a sliver that says sliver creatures you control have flying. And I will say I kind of am interested in seeing if this sliver package gets expressed a little bit more clearly throughout the rest of the cube, because I do think, because of the nature of slivers being, again, available in all five colors and colorless, to be honest with you, and additionally having effects that reinforce one another, this pocket of synergy is something like I'm glad to see expressed in the cube itself. And I don't know if that was something you were doing intentionally, or if that was something that sort of has happened sort of by happenstance. But anyway, what are your thoughts around the sliver cards? Am I on the right path, or am I sort of like reading more into it than was ever intended?
Well, Bruce, I think what you sort of caught on to was the formation of the tribes, which people are, or as kindred as it's called now. I apologize. I don't want to offend anyone at all.
That's fair.
Um, but what you're catching on to is the establishment of the kindred and the creature types. Um, Admittedly, Limp Sliver was in there just for absorb. It was one of the, I think it might be the only card with absorb, or only slivers have the absorb mechanics. So that might be one of the mechanics that just doesn't make it in. Um, I like the idea of a small pocket of synergy. I'm not totally sure yet. These slivers are just sort of in here. I kept them in there as a reminder. But now that I've done more research, I've quickly realized that humans are by far the biggest creature type.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
there's 61 humans. Um, in They're ahead by a large margin. The next one is 17 warriors, 15 spirits, 14 soldiers, 13 wizards, and then we're into elementals, elves, and Phyrexians. So at this point, I'm trying to decide what the major creature types would be at this point. So I'm not opposed to putting in slivers, but I feel like if I did, uh, people would want me to go all in. So I'd probably have to put a lot more slivers. So honestly,
Yeah.
now I'm leaning more towards just taking these two slivers out, probably.
That makes a lot of sense. And so some part of me is a little sad to see slivers go, because they are an iconic part of what makes Magic feel different than many other card games. But you are right. In order to make them be a viable archetype, or a viable kindred group you could play, you do need a critical mass of them, and having two or three doesn't represent a mass of them. And you also end up getting tempted into playing some of the very expensive five colored ones, which may or may not be to everyone's liking, because they are maybe hard to cast or uncastable, and are also the payoff may not just be able to be there. So it might make sense that we cut the slivers, the Gale Rider and the Lymph Sliver. And I don't think your cube is going to miss anything if you lose the absorb mechanic, because I don't think that's a particularly great mechanic. But anyway, there were certainly lots of other cards that have flying, to say the least. So I think it's
Yeah,
more than
and for sure the slivers have been done before, so I wouldn't really be breaking any new ground with the slivers cube. Uh,
no,
I
no, you
think
would
that
not.
there's probably room to just let the slivers. There's other places that everyone can play slivers if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, I would say if people want to play slivers, you go find a Time Spiral remaster draft and do it that way, because there are lots of slivers there. So let me promise you. All right, other cards that get my attention. So Ancestral Recall and Time Twister, like positively jump off the page as being really, really powerful things that get my attention. They are legitimately cards that are in the Power Nine, and that for them to be expressed in this cube is, uh, to me, like emblematic of what cube is, because you can't play them in too many other locations, especially Ancestral Recall. And they really, really partner well with with cards like Snapcaster Mage, which I think is a very, very powerful card, but I think in 2026 has been largely supplanted as being, something that people are looking to do a great deal of. And then I'm also really, really interested in, like, so we talked about it last week where you had an artifact equipment package. Well, the artifact equipment business continues with Simulacrum Synthesizer, Cryptic Coat, which is a really interesting piece of equipment from Duskworn, and then a Whir of Invention, which allows us to tutor up um, some really powerful artifacts. So, what are your thoughts at this stage of, like, with some of these other cards I've highlighted here? Like, am I on the right path, or am I, like, was this not the intention of what we were doing here?
Recall and Time Twister are two of my all-time favorites. Again, the nostalgia factor is just through the roof, and the wow factor of opening those up in the packs. Snapcaster was from my second foray into Magic. I sold all my paper cards in college, but then when I started playing again on MTGO and MTG Arena, Snapcaster 10, 12 years ago was one of my all-time favorite cards as well.
Yeah,
All these cards are in here for the nostalgia and the wow factor, but as you've quickly noticed with your magical prowess, is that cards like Shield Red, the Apocalypse, and Orcish Bowmasters are also in the list, so there's some high synergies there. If they're a little too broken, I might want to consider nerfing one or two of them. But Synthesizer makes me want to fit some more artifacts in. In general, I want to fit some more artifacts into the list because they're great for draft. They fit in every color, and Cryptic Coat, of course, is going to work perfect with the other white equipment baddies that we discussed last
yeah,
episode. So
yeah.
all this stuff synergizes together very well and can make a pretty nasty white and blue deck or a white blue black deck.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really interesting. And I like the fact that, like, the cloak mechanic was actually a pretty interesting way to have it represent morph cards without it being or manifest cards without it being as easy to blow them up as you could when you had just the morph or the manifest cards that we had when Khans of Tarkir, or even before then in whatever previous old set they were in. But I got exposed to them both in the Khans of Tarkir block, and the the cloak mechanic, right, was very reminiscent of those experiences, but they provided with a ward cost, making it a little more palatable so that you didn't get blown out by somebody's
Oh, Ward
expensive.
is so good. Ward is so good. I often say that they should just change the name of Ward to, oh, it has Ward. Never mind.
Yeah, frequently that is the case. Although I do think Ward 2 sort of hits a sweet spot where, like, if you go Ward 1, well, paying an extra 1 mana is not a big deal. If it goes Ward 3, it may as well have hexproof, because it's like you're not paying 3 additional mana for your Swords to Plowshares or your Lightning Bolt or whatever. But at 2, you'd think about it. You're like, well, I could. Do I
Yeah.
want to? I don't know. So
Yeah.
I think Ward 2 is a nice middle ground, particularly to avoid the feel bads um, having a creature that is, turned face down, and then you're like, oh boy, I could flip my explosive thing up, and then it disappears because they killed it with a bolt or something. So, I have to say I do like that one. The synthesizer is a house. I have been destroyed by that so many times in so many formats. Every time I see that synthesizer, I just clench because I'm going to get destroyed. Like, grit my teeth and just I'm going to get rocked by that thing. It is super good. The constructs are huge, and it is so difficult to stop. So, um, now I think your points about Children and Orcish Bowmasters and how it interacts profitably with Time Twister is a very valid concern. We talked last week at great length about storytelling, right? And that was, we really wanted the point of having the feature of the deck, or of our gameplay, be telling a story. And if we, like, Time Twister plus Shieldred means your opponents eat 14 damage like immediately. And that probably is removing them from the game. And Bowmasters isn't far off. However, I've thought about it, and I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with having an explosive way to end the game sometimes. Provided we have ways for our players to interact and stop either one or both halves of that explosive play. So whether it's a counter spell to counter the Time Twister or a removal spell to take Shouldered off the table, as long as we give players the tools to handle those situations, then the play experience is not going to be necessarily harmed irreparably. And it results in a pretty cool story when you say, I died to Shouldered because my opponent cast Time Twister and left me dead. So I do think I don't think at this point I would want to see you take them out of the cube there, Jay. I think if you play this another 10, 15, 20 times and you find that people keep gravitating for the Bowmasters or the Shouldered plus Time Twister kill combo, well, then maybe we think about we have a problem that's being emerging here. But without data to support that, then I don't think we need to go and necessarily jump the shark, so to speak, right? Does that make sense?
It does, because most of my removal is very high casting cost and currently in colorless. I sort of went through and added the removal as a second thought, and I thought it might be okay to just have a lot of the removal be colorless spells.
Right.
Things like Scour from Existence and Nevinral Disc, etc., etc., can fit into any deck, but they're just not quick enough for some of the more aggro cards. So
Right.
I think one of the goals of mine, and that I'd like you to help me out with, is finding some balanced removal in every color, a bit more effective, a bit more low casting cost, quicker stuff that you can handle some of these big baddies with.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way of looking at it. Perfect. All right. Now you do have some really powerful interaction in this particular color. I was really interested in the fact that Cyclonic Rift appears, and Cyclonic Rift is one of those cards that is outrageously powerful and was such a design mistake when they made it. I don't know at the time when they printed it in Return to Ravnica if they understood what exactly they were doing, but this card is very, very powerful because if you can use it early as if their opponents are trying to go for that Time Twister, you could bounce the Shieldred back to their hand and not get demolished, right? Which is pretty key. But late in the game, it is an absolute win condition where you bounce all their things and crush them on the attack. And you're going to see that this is a very common play pattern with this card typically, that it's usually they play it and then the game ends on the spot because they die. And then Gilded Drake, which is sort of a really neat old card that we haven't seen. Wait, there's Volatile Storm Drake, which was like the new version of it. They printed it in Modern Horizons 3. But Gilded Drake, and our audience may not be familiar with, this is a 1 and a blue for a 3/3 flying Drake. When Gilded Drake comes into play, exchange control of Gilded Drake for a target creature one of your opponent's controls, or sacrifice Gilded Drake. So it's pretty well just, here, give me your thing. I will now have your best card. And that is pretty strong. So, but I think they're both good tools that you can equip a player with. But I think looking at our list, there are a few more tools that I think we may want to think about playing going forward.
Yeah, I think Cyclonic Rift and Gilded Drake, they fill out that exact phrase of blue players doing blue things. Cyclonic Rift is a great card, so versatile. And Gilded Drake is the only time it's not good is if it's the only creature on the board.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I've been playing straight blue every time that I drafted my own cube, and I'm glad that you picked up on these things, because my record has been decent. I could always play better, but I'm glad to see that blue feels at least similar in power level to the white that we discussed last week.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that that it has similar tools and a similar power level. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, and I'm looking at it, and I see cards like the Mind Skinner and I see Archive Trap, which are both very large payoffs for mill strategies. And they're doing some pretty heavy lifting there. So, was this something you were looking to seed in your cube? Was a mill strategy that was, you wanted to see brought to life?
Mind Skinner was put in there um, for the mill mechanic. Archive Trap was put in there for the trap qualifier, which isn't really a mechanic; it's more of a card type. But it's we sort of blur the lines here. When I started doing research on how many mechanics are, there's even a discussion in that is because when you look at the Magic cards, some things like landfall are in italics because even though it's when a land comes into play, it doesn't do the exact same thing every time, like
Right. Yeah.
regeneration or lifelink or trample. Those keywords are always in regular type. The ones that are in italics are sort of like a reminder text, but they can do something different every time. I'm
Right.
not opposed to having like a mill win condition, but I thought that the Mind Skinner was a neat card. It's a 3 casting cost creature. It has a huge offense, but you end up milling anyway. So in my head, it was a neat creature that you could sort of you with a 40 card draft deck, you might be able to mill someone out just with Mind Skinner by itself. Um,
Yeah.
uh, your thoughts?
Well, you're absolutely right. Like, I think the Mind Skinner is very, very big. It's 3 attacks and the game is probably over because if you think about it, you're opening 7 plus 3 cards. Now you're into 3 attacks and you're dead to Mind Skinner. So you have to pray that your opponent, like, if you're going for the mill strategy, you have to pray your opponent doesn't have anything in the way of removal, or you're probably cooked, unless Jay, as the mastermind behind the cube, goes and seeds a few other tools into the list somewhere. But I mean, lots of people. I know mill is a strategy that people really always love, and they find it very, I don't know, engaging, or like a fun puzzle, almost like a bunch of sickos to try and figure out how to make the mill go. So I mean, I wouldn't say I'm opposed to mill strategies. It's not a strategy I tend to be particularly enamored with, but I do appreciate, like, if some people find it really fun, and some people find it really funny when the mill strategy is effective. But it takes a lot of work, and I also don't have a problem with strategies being inherently challenging to assemble to make the thing work, because that's okay. Like, magic should be a puzzle that people need to resolve, and that's sort of what makes cube and drafting generally kind of exciting. So I guess like, if we could seed a couple more mill cards, I don't want to go too ham, but seeding a couple more mill cards might be fun and might make for a yet another interesting archetype that players could lean into, or, like, maybe more precisely, that pocket of synergy we were kicking around earlier.
Yeah, for sure. I know you were talking to me about Imperious Mindbreaker before the podcast started today, and I'm wondering if any of our listeners might have any other fun ideas they can include below.
Yeah, if you have suggestions, folks, go down to the comments and leave a comment for us. We would love to find out about what you guys are thinking for other fun mill cards that we could include in this list. Now, let's, like last week, let's go and do a crack a pack, and really help us frame our thinking around what we might draft, and, like, what we might take, and what we might experience as a play experience. Are you ready, Jay?
Yeah, share your screen with me. Let's
I
do
will
this.
share my screen. There it is. All right. So this is what we have got on deck today. We see Heliod Suncrowned. We read it last week. It's pretty powerful. It's got the +1/+1 counters if something has got life link, or you gain life. Nylea, God of the Hunt. So 3 and a green for a 6/6, a legendary enchantment creature god with indestructible. As long as your devotion to green is less than 5, Nylea isn't a creature. Other creatures you control have trample, and 3 and a green. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Neverwinter Hydra, XX green green for a 0/0 creature Hydra. As Neverwinter Hydra enters the battlefield, roll a XD6. It enters with a number of plus almost counters on equal to the total number of those results. It has Trample and Ward 4. Guess what's not getting killed? Collective Defiance, 1 red with Escalate. It's a sorcery. So you can choose one or more. And if you want to pick another mode, you have to pay an extra colorless mana. Target player discards all the cards in his or her hand, then draws that many cards. Collective Defiance deals 4 damage to target creature. Collective Defiance deals 3 damage to target creature. I'm sorry, target opponent, sorry. Ultimate Weapon, 7 mana. Legendary Artifact Equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, destroy target creature and opponent controls. Equipped creature gets +7/+7 and equip for 7. Garza's Assassin, black, human assassin. It is a 2/2 and sacrifice Garza's Assassin, destroy target non-black creature. Recover, pay half your life rounded up. When another creature is put into your graveyard from play, you may pay half your life rounded up. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. That is a wild old mechanic. I've never seen that one before. Okay, Curse of Leeches. It's a 2 and a black for an enchantment or a curse. Enchant player. As this permanent transforms into Curse of Leeches, attach it to a player. At the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, they lose 1 life and gain 1 life. And then it has Daybound and Nightbound, so it can turn into a 4/4 life-linking creature. Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, 3 and a blue for a 3/1. As a legendary creature, human rogue. You may have Sakashima of 1,000 Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control, except Sakashima of 1,000 Faces other abilities, and the legend rule doesn't apply, and his partner. The Mightstone and Weakstone, 5 mana, legendary artifact, Power Stone. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1, draw 2 cards, or target creature gets -5/-5, and tap to add 2 colorless. Feral Throwback, 6 green, 3/3 creature beast with Amplified 2. As this card comes into play, put 2 +1 counters on it for each beast card you reveal in your hand. That is Provoke. When this attacks, you may have a target creature, target defending player controls, untap and block it if able. That is a silly card too. All right, Changeling Berserker. 3 and a red for a 5/3 changeling with haste and champion a creature. When this creature enters play, sacrifice unless you remove another creature you control from the game. When this leaves play, this card returns to play. Erebos, God of the Dead, 3 and a black, 5/7. Legendary enchantment creature god with indestructible. If you don't have devotion 5 in black, Erebos isn't a creature. Your opponents can't gain life, and then 1 in a black, pay 2 life, draw a card. Nessian Wild Ravager, 4 green for a 6/6 Hydra, tribute 6. As this creature enters the battlefield, an opponent may choose to put 6/6 plus counters on it. When Ravager enters the battlefield, if tribute wasn't paid, you may have Nessian Wild Ravager fight another target creature. Then you have Windswept Heath, which is a white-green fetch land, and Battle Angels of Tyr. Oh, last week was a pack. This is like very, very interesting. Okay. Jay, what are you thinking tonight? This is a very different pack from last week, where we had like a very clear number of front runners. In your experience playing your cube, what would you say would be the cards that players should look at to be early picks right in today?
I mean, can I really say Heliod Suncrown twice in a row? Sakashima of 1,000 Faces is a great pick. As well as the Ultimate Weapon, I think, are all great picks. Erebos, God of the Dead. Something with only 1 pip in it is always good for draft.
Yeah,
So you don't have to double pip for your first pick. Otherwise, I might take Neverwinter Hydra just because it's huge and Ward 4 is unbearable.
Yeah, that's like that may as well be untouchable. So, interesting.
I'm second guessing my inclusion of Feral Throwback because the more research I did on the creature types and kindred, there's not many beasts.
All right, I guess. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I think my first inclination is I go the Mightstone and Weakstone. That'd be like where my eyes are drawn, and then the second would be Erebos, God of the Dead. So the reason I would take the Mightstone and Weakstone, First off, when it enters the battlefield, it has the mode where it can kill a thing, probably like -5/-5 kills most things in the cube. Um, or it draws me 2 cards, so it gets me more resources, and then I can use it for mana. Now, granted, it's got to be artifacts, but that's okay. I'm pretty okay if I'm in the artifact deck. That's pretty okay with me. But if nothing else, like the colorless card means I'm going to be more likely to play it in any color in any deck that I have. And it's going to provide me with potentially card advantage or a removal spell. The Erebos
Yeah.
God of the Dead at 4 and a black, like single pipped, 5/7. Okay, it means I want to play a heavy black deck, but that's fine. The greed on it to help me draw cards again. I want to draw cards because I know that frequently cubes are a question of being, can you out resource your opponent? And if you can't, you are likely to lose the game. So I want ways, and particularly ways that are hard to remove, that are going to get me more cards in my hand to continue to play. So those are where I'm going, because I would be very honest, in this pack, Heliod doesn't stick out in the same way. I think the Mightstone, Weakstone, and Erebos are actually more interesting. And Erebos is a direct counter to what Heliod is doing. So I think that is where my inclination would lie.
Yeah.
So
I'm,
anyway,
I'm also liking Nylea, God of the Hunt, in a straight green deck. Could be potentially really, really good.
so I like Nylea, but I think she falls behind the other two gods because of the fact that for her to be really effective, you need to have a pretty developed board, right? If Erebos comes down on turn one on turn 4, you can use his abilities very promptly. Heliod, same way. You only need a singular creature on the battlefield that you can target with his ability to give it lifelink before it's useful. Nylea, on the other hand, is contingent on having a much bigger board state before she's good. And so the question begs, like, do you want her, like, she becomes like a late game play, I guess, because you have big things that need trample, or you want to make them bigger yet still with her activated ability. So I think she's definitely appealing, and I really do like this design of the gods from Theros. So I'm a big fan of Nylea, but I think I would go for I honestly I think my first pick is the Mightstone and Weakstone here, which is kind of
Okay.
crazy to. So
No, it's hard to argue with that, and that's my whole point of this cube, is to have a tough decision like that, and just also know that if you do pick the wrong card, that chances are a great card is going to come back around to you, because there'll still be
mhm,
always more great cards left.
absolutely. So let's move on and talk about questions that I have stemming from having looked at this list. All right.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
now we talked about it at the top of the show, where we talked about, people think of blue, they think of blue being tricksy, doing blue things, right? And you have a couple of interesting ways to do it. So make disappear and Glenalendra. But I'm looking at, you don't have a lot of other instants of sorceries to interact with their opponents, because you've said, and you've been open about it from the outset, that you are interested in the creature heavy idea. But is it something that we really that we could explore in lieu of things like playing Erayo Soratami Ascendant, which is like, again, not unlike some of the other cards from last week, like an Orum's Chant, where if your opponents can flip it, it makes playing the game very difficult. I'll read it for everybody here, because it is 1 in a blue for a 1/1 flying legendary creature Moonfolk Monk that says, whenever the fourth spell of a turn is played this turn, flip Erayo Soratami Ascendant. And when you flip it, it becomes Erayo's Essence, and is a legendary enchantment that says counter the first spell played by each opponent each turn. Oh, woof. That card is hard to play through, isn't it?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. When I put it in there, I sort of assumed, looking at the casting cost curve in my blue cube and knowing that a lot of the cards were higher casting costs, that you would really need to put in some effort to flip this card in my cube. But you're right. If they do flip it, it's no fun for whoever's sitting across the table. And what you're talking about too relates to what we mentioned earlier about blue players like to do blue things. And a lot of the blue creatures, they have higher mana value and higher casting costs for smaller bodies, smaller power and toughness for more mana. They do have more tricks, but it's going to be hard for the blue mages to keep up with the other colors if I keep this just 100% creature focused. So
Yeah.
I'm agreeing that if we could put a couple more cards in there, like uh, maybe Cryptic Command. I
Oh,
remember some old ones like Mana Leak or Power Sink, or even Unsummon could be horribly broken. But just to give the blue players a couple more combat tricks and instants and sorceries to really get back to what blue does.
oh, you said, like, as someone who likes to play blue, you said all the magic words: Cryptic Command, Mana Leak, Power Sync, Unsummon. I think I would like. I like Cryptic Command. I think Cryptic Command actually fits nicely in this cube as a really interesting, an iconic card. I think that one probably fits pretty really nicely. I think playing something like a mana leak, I think is very viable. I think I because of its conditional nature, it's fine to play mana leak. I do think this is unsummon is probably still a cut too good. As much as it sounds silly because it's a common from alpha, but I might do something like an unsubstantiate or something like a 2 mana spell, because 1 mana unsummon plus a snapcaster mage is a problem. Like it's going to set your opponent back probably 8 to 10 mana, and you will have deployed 4. And it's like it's one of those things where I'm like, ooh, okay, we may need to be mindful of that, just so we don't house our opponents too badly. All right, now Deadeye Navigator is another one that I look at, and I always am very dubious of Deadeye Navigator, not because it's too good, because it's still a 6 mana 5/5, but it's the ability on it where you can soul bond it to another creature and then flicker it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then you end up getting some really powerful effects. Like if you have like a mana war effect, or if you have, I'm like looking at the list, like in your blue cards alone. Let's go back to the list. I can't find the list right now. I'm old. I'm a Luddite. Okay, so looking at the blue cards alone, like you only have one card that plays like a mana war. So Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara returns a creature to your opponent's hand. That seems fine. What else do we have here that could be a problem? Like blinking the Mind Skinner with Entity Tracker on the battlefield results in lots of drawing. You know, Snapcaster Mage could be a good source of value. I mean, I don't think anything's inherently crazy with Deadeye Navigator, but I do think we have to be careful with Deadeye because of the potential for really crazy interactions with stuff.
To agree with you. It's something that I've had my eye on ever since you and I have started talking about this cube. Admittedly, uh, with my, I really play Magic as more of a game. I don't do a lot, anywhere near as much research as a lot of other players, and my memory isn't really as great for remembering all the cards. There are so many cards that Wizards
Yeah,
prints now, and you and Pete have really great memories, and I'm glad I can get your input on this, because any combos that you found were basically accidental on my part so far.
right.
Um, I I want to be aware and not make these broken, because in my head there's a million other formats. If you want to play broken combos and things that just put themselves together in the first few turns, there was a first turn kill in Pauper for a while there.
Yeah,
I haven't played Pauper in a while, but every format is pretty much broken by the player base, and I would like to focus on more balanced bread and cab themed options.
Okay.
Also, I'm looking for the storytelling here. If Magic was a motorcycle race, are you going on a drive together with your friend, or are you just trying to beat them to the top of the hill? If it was a Call of Duty lobby, are
Right.
you looking to, you know, it, are you just trying to headshot your opponent as quickly as possible and move on to the next match? There's plenty of other formats for you to do that there. So I
Right.
really want to be cognizant of it's neat to have these things, but I really do want it to be balanced. And so you can go on an adventure with your friend and play a game together with a group of friends, and your night's not going to be over immediately just because you made one mistake or you didn't draft the super cool combo.
So yeah, I hear you. I hear your point. I think is well taken. I also do think, before we get too far down the road of like cutting too many things, we do want some more data. But I think that like Dead Eye Navigator would be certainly one that I would be at least alert to the fact that it could warp a game very readily because it's hard to interact with, because of the fact it extracts immense value out of some of the cards. It could be a scenario where if people can resolve it readily, then it ends up being what turns the tide of the game very promptly. So I think my advice would be simply to be mindful of it as you're going forward, to not allow, like, just to be aware of what it's doing. um Next, Ruination Guide. So Ruination Guide, audience, you may not be familiar with it. This is a card from Rise of the Eldrazi. No, it's not. It is Zendikar Rising. And it is, I don't know what's happened here. I'm going to close that. So Ruination Guide is, it is 2 and a blue for a 3/2, and it is got devoid, which means has no color. Even if it has blue mana, it has no color. It is an Eldrazi drone with ingest. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top card of his or her library. And then other colors creatures you control get +1/+0. Now, are there any other cards in the list that even generate Eldrazi spawn or scions?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm pretty
Right.
much sure that I just saw with this, I saw a blue card with Devoid and Ingest. It's two mechanics in one card, which saves me a lot of space and allows for other cards. And it seemed like a decent sized body. So I wasn't really looking for synergy with this one.
Right.
It could probably go. But again, I think I just saw Devoid and Ingest on the same card and figured, hey, why not?
Right. Okay, fair enough. I mean there are cards like Fathom Feeder which would do the same thing, although it is a blue black card as opposed to a mono blue card, but it's an option. Uh then we have Maeve Insidious Singer. This is a card I have never seen before. 2 blue blue, 3/4 legendary creature Siren. 2 and a blue, goad target creature. Whenever that creature attacks one of your opponents, this turn you draw a card. Well, the goad mechanic is not really well suited to 1v1, so I think this is probably something that we don't really want to keep going forward.
That's a great point. Um, I'm also Yeah, I would agree with you 100% there. Learning lessons from my original build. I'm excited to see what kind of cards we can add to replace a card like this because, like you said, not all the mechanics. There's over 350 mechanics, and it easily got whittled down just by taking out certain ones like this that apply only to multiplayer.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the problem with goad. It doesn't really work in a 1v1 scenario. So, all right, that sounds good. Um, Now, what are your thoughts? Like, any over now that we've had a chance to sort of like break down much of the color, what do you feel? How are you feeling about blue right now?
Uh, I think it's similar in power level to white, but I definitely am looking to get some more interaction in there because, like I've said twice already, blue players they want to do all the nice tricks and stuff because the creatures can't always keep up with the creatures from the other
Mhm.
colors. So I'm excited to see um, what kind of counter spells we can get in there, what sort of other uh, instants and sorceries we can get in there, some combat tricks, and even on to some new cards from Turtles or cards from Secrets of Strixhaven with all the new mechanics that came out in both of those sets.
Right. I think that's pretty good. So I think like in turn we already started talking about it. Like I think when we talked about interaction, you had brought up Cryptic Command, which I think is a really good inclusion. Now what it does is it really incentivizes somebody for looking to play mono blue or heavy blue deck, which I think is good. I think that's an interesting deck restriction for a card that is very powerful. Cryptic Command is unbelievably powerful, and even more so if you can get the value out of a Snapcaster Mage to do it a second time, right?
Oh, that was
But
one of my all-time favorite plays. I was doing that all the time back in
absolutely,
around, what was it, 2014, 2015. It was all about Snapcaster Mage and Cryptic Command. That was my online heyday.
yeah, that's good fun, right? But not everybody like knows all about what all the things that you can do with Cryptic Command, and so I think there's value to it being like included. I also think Three Steps Ahead provides you a similar effect as a Cryptic Command, because like Cryptic Command is great because it's modal. It's got different options that can afford players different things they could do. Three Steps Ahead is very similar because of its spree cost. You can pay 3 mana to counter a spell. You can pay 6 mana to counter a spell and create a token. You can pay 8 mana to counter a spell, create a token, and draw 2 cards, and then discard a card. Or you can mix and match as you see fit based on how much mana you have in front of you, which makes it versatile, flexible, and powerful, which I think are all things that I'm looking for when in my deck. But also Mana Leak and Unsubstantiate are two more, like, I think just solid inclusions that are going to make your interaction package a little bit more interesting for your list. And those are cards that are not like, they're not new, they're just pretty classic, pretty dependable meat and potatoes type cards that, people put in lists.
Yeah, I have to admit, I really like your suggestion of 3 steps ahead. And I'm immediately going to go into my spreadsheet and look through, because I can't recall off the top of my head which card I did include for the spree mechanic. But 3 steps ahead has got to be at the top of the list when we're talking about the spree mechanic.
Pretty sure
Um,
it's pretty sure it's Final Showdown, which is the wrath effect in white.
oh, okay.
The fact that I remember that is not at all
No,
concerning at
this is
all.
what I'm
But
talking about, Bruce. This is why I love your help, is because you have the parts about magic that are not in my wheelhouse. I'm really looking at it. It makes me think a lot about poker. Like when I sit down at a poker table, like no one ever believes me. Even when I try to play with my friends, I'm like, "Yo, I'll play with you guys for nickels and dimes." Like I'm not trying to win money. I'm just trying to play a game, and I'm not too sure they believe me, because I know when you go to a casino and you sit down at a professional poker table or a real poker table, it's not a game. It's
no,
everybody sitting there for business and they're doing math. It's business and math. And if you really want to win in Magic, that's what it is too. It's business and math.
yeah, so you're not wrong. You're not wrong. All right, let's talk about new cards from new sets. Turtles. Is there anything from Ninja Turtles that jumps off the page as being something we want to include? I had a
I mean,
look.
go ahead.
I mean, I was looking, and I'm not sure there's anything that really jumps off the page, so to speak. But I mean, like, there could be some interesting role players, but I'm not sure I'm going crazy for anything really. Is there anything that sort of catches your eye?
I mean, there were some good Donatello cards in blue, but I really have to up the artifact count in this cube before I start adding a card like that. Um, I
Yeah.
didn't see much in blue from Turtles. Some other colors, when we get to the other colors, I think there's definitely some Turtles cards we could add for a bunch of new mechanics that they included, but not much for blue. No, not really.
No, that's fair. I kind of sort of felt the same way. But what about Strixhaven? Is there anything from Strixhaven? I think when you opened an emeritus of ideation, that the universe is telling you you need to put the emeritus in your list.
Oh yes, because I'm immediately putting Emeritus of Ideation for Commander. I have an Arthur Marigold Knight deck, but I'm kind of torn because I'm really comparing it to Cavalier of Gales. Are you familiar with Cavalier of Gales?
Oh, I have done many dumb things with that card. Yes,
So
I
that
am.
card works really well in my Arthur deck, but Emeritus of Ideation, yeah, it's just going to fit into almost any blue deck. I mean, plus it has Ancestral Recall on it. Um,
Yeah.
it's hard not to want to put. It's such an iconic card. It was the first one that they spoiled. Like, it got us all talking about the set, and I think that that's it. It would be hard not to fit this into my cube.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the universe telling you that you need to play it. And I'm just gonna say it plays really nicely with like the Thassa and the Deadeye Navigator, as you could blink it, reset it, and then Ancestral Recall again. Is that
So
is that
good.
did I just did the greed all come out of me all at once, all right there? Maybe all the
Um,
greed. Um
blue players like to do blue things, Bruce.
would never have said I was a blue player, but maybe I am. Right, so I like Emeritus. What else did you have in mind from the new set for Strixhaven? Like, what was another funky card or something else you saw that kind of spoke to you?
I mean, I know you brought up Pensive Professor. That was one card I didn't think of, but you've already talked me into it, as well as Imperious Mindbreaker. I'd like to hear your thoughts on those two cards because you've pretty much already talked me into both of them.
Well, I like the Pensive Professor. So one blue for a 0/2 with human wizard with increment. Whenever you cast a spell, so increment's from Strixhaven and is the Quandrix um ability. So whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana you spend is greater than this creature's power or toughness, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Whenever you one or more +1/+1 counters are put on this creature, draw a card. So the first you're gonna get you play it for 3 mana, and the next time you cast any spell, it's gonna pick up a counter and draw you a card. So then probably the next 2 to 3 spells you cast, if you sequence them properly, are likely to draw you a card. From there, if you have any other ways to put counters on things, you are going to be into the cards for sure and have a whole bunch. And when I see things like Radstorm floating around in your list, because of that ability to grant proliferate on a storm card, so I know it's a big ask here, and I know the audience is going, "Oh, Bruce, you're going to like Christmas Town here, like this Christmas magical Christmas land." This is the sort of thing that like I see, and I go, if this pensive professor is floating around, I'm looking for things like Radstorm or other ways that make counters that so I can abuse the holy bejeebus out of this card because I want to draw not just like a few cards, I want to draw all the cards. And then when I'm done, I can blink it, reset it, and do it again. And I'm going to get greedy, but that's okay. I want to draw cards. If I'd like to do anything else, I want to draw all the cards. The Imperious Mindbreaker is a little bit different. One blue for a 1/4 human wizard with soul bond. So it's the same soul bond mechanic that is on Deadeye Navigator. But as long as Imperious Mindbreaker is paired with another creature, each of those creatures has whenever this creature attacks, each opponent mills cards equal to its toughness. And I kind of like it because it gives your mill strategies another avenue to explore rather than just being dependent on relying on the mind skinner and the archive trap. So those are like why I'm kind of inclined to see those two get added to the list. But I don't know how you as the designer feels about it.
I think all three of them would be great inclusions. Also, because like we mentioned earlier, humans are the biggest creature type, so those three are also humans. Um, but drawing cards, like we talked about in the pack one pick one with the Erebos god, drawing cards is always good. That's what you want to do, and the more cards you can draw, the more resources you have to beat your opponent.
Yeah.
A lot of people would do almost anything to draw a card in this game.
I will jump through some very ridiculous hoops to say the least. Yes. But
Yes.
if we're adding cards, you probably got to cut some, don't we?
Sure. I've immediately lately I've been thinking of 10 cards we could cut right away would be all the pay one fetch lands, Verdant Catacombs, Arid Mesa, etc. Might be
Okay.
really easy to cut, especially because I've sort of been thinking in monocolored terms. As you're pointing out, there are a lot of synergies where it would pay off big time to play some dual colored decks and some tricolored decks. Um, we talked about cutting Mave because Go doesn't make sense. Arayo because it's a little oppressive. Wan Shi Tong All Knowing might be able to go. One because we already have another Wan Shi Tong, and I think I had included that as just one of the more expensive wow factor ones.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
any other cards that you were thinking?
Well, I was thinking Coastal Breach. Coastal Breach has the Undaunted mechanic, which really only works out particularly profitably in multiplayer, because what it says on Coastal Breach is this spell costs one less to cast for each opponent you have, meaning it's only going to get reduced by one. Well, which now takes it from a 7 mana spell to a 6 mana spell, and it
Yeah,
returns all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. So it's
yeah.
kind of like a big board reset and a bit of a womp womp. So I think it can probably come out. I don't think the mechanic makes a lot of sense to play. And then I think I would, much as it kind of pains me, I think I'd take out Zephyr Falcon, if only because the power level of so many things in this cube are so high, and this old card from Legends doesn't really do it anymore. Like a 2 mana 1/1 flyer with vigilance is like, it's cute and it's kind of a meme, but I don't think you want the meme. We're not going for a meme cube. We're going for like a wow. And so if I see Zephyr Falcon, or if I get Zephyr Falcon last pick, I'm unlikely to want to try and to play it because it's probably too low impact.
Oh, I have to agree. It's probably not making the cut. That was definitely a nostalgia pick for me.
Yeah.
I have to agree that the Zephyr Falcon, yeah, was just a flavor nostalgia pick. So now that we're really looking to optimize the cube, that one's probably going to go.
Yeah. The removal of the fetch lands is an interesting and probably a pretty contentious issue that some people out there may not understand. And I think I agree with you, Jay, when you talk about removing them, because if you look in the list, and I hope anybody who's at home is checking the list out, Jay's got all 10 of the fetch lands, but doesn't really have a lot of additional lands that could profit from that sort of stuff. So
No,
you don't.
you're gonna end up getting the basics. You're
Yeah.
really only going to be able to get the basic lands with them.
Right. So, which means that we're like, they're kind of a misleading card in the sense that if I see like the windswept heath, like we saw today in our cube, in our crack a pack, it suggests to me that there is a multicolored deck to be found in this list. That's 3, 4, or 5 colors. But when you have no other shocklands, trilands, anything that you can go fetch with it other than a basic, it doesn't really do what you want it to do. So maybe it's worth our while taking them out and putting in a little bit of modest fixing, like an Evolving Wilds, a Terramorphing Expanse, a couple of little pieces, so people could splash a little bit if they want to, but not feel like they have to like go make a 5-color soup deck, which would then free also up some other spots for some other cool inclusions in the list, which I think is kind of what the whole goal is, I think, to try and make this a fun, playable experience, time and time again.
Yeah, I have to agree with you 100% because even though it might not be the popular thing these days, I really did build this cube, the first iteration of it, uh, with monocolored decks in mind, especially when you take a look at the amount of dual colored, the amount of multicolored cards are very slim. I think I only have um, one to three. I think two is the average. Uh, two Boros cards, two
Yeah.
Quandrix cards, two of each. and there really is not a big focus on multicolor cards as a priority. If you happen to find something neat, which you're helping me discover, if you come across a nice little synergy or a nice little combo, that could give you a reason to go two color. But I really was hoping to simplify the process because this might just be my bad luck, but I've had so many times where I've sat down to do a draft. I spend 45 minutes drafting, spend 20, 30 minutes building a deck, and then you sit down and you lose in the first round because you got mana screwed.
Yeah.
And I've never really appreciated that. So I did have a strong tendency towards monocolored decks when I designed the first iteration of this cube.
Right. Which makes sense, right? I mean, it's a I think a natural reaction to the unfortunate experience of variants biting you in the tail. So anyway, if there are other cards that you'd like to see either, included, or maybe you want to see cards that are cut, you have an idea and you've looked at the list, you thought, maybe we could switch out something else, please leave a comment down below so we can check it out. We'd love to hear what other people in the community are thinking as well too. I know we're up close and in the thick of it, having conversations about it. Now it's 3 weeks in a row, but we'd love to hear what other people out there on the internet are thinking as well. I mean, very, very rewarding. So at this point, Jay, is there anything else you want to add to our discussion or any last points you want to make?
Check out the website, mythicmechanics.com. Check out the website, garbageorgreat.com. You can print out the cube, do it all yourself, and follow Mythic Mechanics on both YouTube and Instagram, as well as the Epic Experiment on YouTube, and check us out.
Indeed. Yeah, we're all over the internet, folks. You can see the links down below in the show notes. Love to have you guys join us there, either on YouTube, on Instagram, or on the podcast, checking us out for all your listening pleasure. But it's getting late. It's time for us to wrap up tonight's conversation. Jay, thank you so much for joining me here on the show this week. Really appreciate you taking the time to come in and have a conversation about your cube. And with that, folks, we're going to wish you all a good night. Peace.
Shout out to Sneaky Pete.